Okay, we're live here. Now I'm going to click over to Instagram. Hi, I'm Amanda Marino. This is Recovery Solutions live on all platforms except for Instagram so far, but we're about to go live on Instagram. Okay, we are live on Instagram too. So hi, I'm Amanda Marino. That's my elephant.
The elephant in the room.
The pink elephant in the room. Welcome to Recovery Solutions. I have an awesome guest who I'm tired. I'm surprised you're not tired of me yet or sick of me yet. But we've been doing a lot together in the past few weeks. So this is Jessica Ponn, LCSW, and also founder of Jessica Ponn Coaching. And what is your group called on social media? Your parenting group?
It is called, the name of this live, in fact, Parenting That Promotes Recovery.
Which is such a great, like, I've never heard it worded like that. So that's unique. So for anyone who's watching, I love to have, I said this last week, kind of a joke. My last live is like a joke, but it's actually true. I like to have people on here that are smarter than me, more educated than me, that I learn from, that I collaborate with, that I partner with, that have different skill sets, and that I feel like aren't maybe out there enough in the world, even though Jessica has been putting herself out there a whole bunch in her new venture. Because a lot of times people that are the smartest, that have the most wonderful things to say, unfortunately, aren't on the internet yet or are scared to be. So I'm grateful for you. If you could introduce yourself to anyone who's watching, and if you're watching, please say hello to Jessica and I in the comments, and we will respond to questions and say hello back and all those fun things.
Yeah, okay. I just figured out how to look at the comments here. I've never been on this platform. So my name is Jessica. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, but that's not even close to what's important. What is important is that I am very passionate and dedicated to working with parents, as the title suggests, who have adult children who struggle with addiction and mental illness. So Amanda has been very supportive and gracious over the last several months as I have been taking some brave steps into the world of social media for the first time and figuring out how to set up live streams and record reels and stuff like that, because up until this point in my career, I've not had to learn those things, so I haven't. But more recently, I am bringing my services, my coaching program nationwide. So the necessary evil of that is figuring out this whole internet thing. So I'm grateful to be on this live with you, and we had some fun yesterday on a podcast, my first podcast yesterday. So
really
good things. Yeah.
I think one of the things you said yesterday that was super cool to me is like, you were like, I was never even like on social media. And then you went from not being on social media at all to like building, oh my God, the puppies are going crazy in the background, real life stuff. I should have left them in their little room, but I was like, no, let them free. They'll be good. So that you went from being like not on social media at all to like not even using it, to like going on and like making content every day. And that is not an easy thing to do. Like I work with a lot of people and help them try to get this started, just to be supportive. But that's really hard for a lot of people. Like, how have you, just before we get into like this topic really quick, I think it will help people that want to step in this form. Like, what have you done to just walk through the fear and do it anyways?
I guess so much of this is mindset, which is so much of what I teach the parents I work with, honestly. So much of supporting a child through the very painful ups and downs of addiction and addiction recovery has to do with mindset and controlling your mindset and your expectations and keeping your eye on the prize and so forth. And that's like a lot of just what I've had to do recently, stepping outside my comfort zone. The work that I'm doing is very comfortable to me and I'm very confident in that, but the way that I'm sharing about it is not the most comfortable, but I've just, controlled my thoughts about it and stayed positive and excited. And I'm thinking like, if you can do it and you're so, supportive and encouraging, and I have a couple other people that I follow that seem like, I don't know, they just go on and they talk and they speak from the heart and they're knowledgeable and passionate enough that they don't really have to overthink it. They just go with it, and people love it, and more importantly, it helps them. So I just try to think about
You're
am
educating.
I helping people? Yeah. And like take myself out of it, you know, because it's not really about me. It's like, you know, can I carry a message that's going to help people, you know, in a very difficult journey and, you know, facing very difficult challenges. If I can help them with something I can, you know, spit off the top of my head in 45 seconds and post on Instagram, then great.
That's one thing that like I think a lot of people to go like the wrong way that try to hop into this arena is they just go right into like, I want to sell my services. I want to sell my services. And like, no, you want to add value. You want to promote awareness and education. You want people to know you. And then that in turn will turn into business. But like people, like if you see some people's TikToks and Instagrams and things like that, they're just making a video about what they want you to buy, and that's just like, that's not the way of the, like, people want authenticity. They want to know you. They want to know. So like you know, you as you've been a therapist, you've been a clinical director of programs, you've had your own private practice, you've collaborated with, you know, my team and I on cases, and, you know, you've been doing this for 15 years, right? For 15 private practice, and, or as a therapist, or both, like, okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the past, what, year or two, you came to like this, like, share how the parent coaching, how that was born, and like how you followed that.
So so say it again.
And how you followed your heart.
Oh, yes, that is an important part. I mean, my heart since like day one of my first internship in the addiction field has been in working with families. I mean, the backstory doesn't really matter, but the point is, it's just been like a fire within me from literally day one. I can remember my first day on the internship at Florida House, which was like a baby little at the time. And like the therapists who I was learning from were all about family systems. And they did such a great job imparting on me like how critical that is, and how much the families are suffering, and how important it is to enroll them and prioritize them as part of the healing process. And so it, over the years, has always been my favorite part of working in this field, is working with families, and specifically parents. And so
yes.
I was talking yesterday on the podcast, I don't want to be repetitive, but a little bit of what I was saying was just that, I mean, working with individuals in private practice, it's very rewarding, and I've been blessed to be able to work with some very special people who have come so far and worked so hard to come from just, you know, the depths of despair and loneliness and hopelessness to beautiful lives, you know, over years of hard work. And that is exceptional, so gratifying. And I'm so honored and blessed to be able to do that for a living, no less, you know. And
your heart, you have skills and talent, but you have a big heart and a lot of passion too, which shines through, you know?
Yeah. I mean, how do you not, you know what I mean? Like how does,
because things are going to be shared in different places. So you can talk about any of the same stuff and they're going to be different. So it would be different.
True. Yes. Good. Noted. Yeah, but how do you not have so much passion and like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't even get how that's an option. You know, when people are so, you know, willing to be so vulnerable and do things that are so just the hardest stuff, you know, you can ask a person to do to heal from the things that they've been through, and they're, you know, you get the honor of doing that with them. It's like amazing. But anyway, as amazing as that is, I also have always still in the back of my mind wanted to work with parents specifically. And so more recently, in the last couple of years, a couple of cases that I was working with for individual therapy, the parents, they really needed a lot of help. And I wasn't able to give them that because it just wasn't in my lane at the time. I was, you know, their adult child's therapist. So we could do a couple of family sessions here and there, but they needed a lot more hands-on support. And so from a couple of back-to-back cases where that was like in my face so much, and then just getting to a point where I wanted to create something that's always been part of me separate from professionally, just like always wanted to make something, do something, you know, different, innovative, creative. You know, I've always had that entrepreneurial kind of drive. So it's a perfect storm, really. And yeah, I mean, a couple other factors sprinkled in at the right time, and I created this program, and I haven't looked back. So I think the one thing that I haven't done, or the main thing that I haven't done well enough probably, is exactly what you're saying. Some people do too much, I guess, on social media, which is just sell, 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 because I've had more than one person say, are you trying to sell? Like, do you have a program? Like, can I pay you to be like,
Yeah.
can I be a client, or are you just giving out all this free content? Like,
Yeah.
just to be nice. So
yeah, it's a delicate, right? I mean, there's things that like I will help, like, even with my social media consulting and like in the behavioral health realm, like I will help anybody like make their first reel and teach them a couple things just because I want to, and I want good people, better, people to get out there.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants like the whole full package, that's another thing. If somebody wants a recommendation to like a therapist or a treatment program, that I'll do all day, right? I'm not going to charge anybody for that. But like if they want to do like deep work, so
Right.
it's also just trial and error, like you're in a new arena, a lot of some coaches, go on to get like a master's degree and want to become a therapist. Some therapists add on the coaching. Some are completely different, because like for me, when I was trying to figure out going on my own, like what I wanted to do, I went to all my therapist friends and they were like, what you want to do is coaching. And I thought like, well, I'll get I think I told you this yesterday too. Like, I'll get the master's degree so other people think I'm credible. And I'm like, that's not the reason to get a master's degree. Like, I have a bachelor's degree that I got as an adult with children. And I like, there's a need for coaching. That's not a clinical service. And I don't ever try to pretend to be a therapist, but you felt like you could do more with this coaching program that you built, the parenting that promotes recovery. And so you built like this special program, and how are you like, tell like how it started. We'll start with how it started and like how it's going.
Well, it started with, like the equivalent of like feeling like I was in a cave for like a few months, where I'm just like creating content and brainstorming, and is this a good idea, and running it by this person, and does that even make sense, because I'm so deep into this that I can't even tell anymore if this is a fantastic idea or super dumb and it's been done 100 times. I don't even know anymore. So it was a lot of hours, just like kind of grinding out, creating a vision and a structure. And it at this point consists of a combination of what I've come over the years to feel and experience to be like the two main deficits that parents need. And part of it, which is what the program entails, is a lot of education. Not just education like addiction 101. I mean, there's some of that, you know what I mean? Like, this is what's going on with your kids' brains. Like, it's not personal. They're not, they don't actually hate you, or they're not trying to forget what you told them yesterday and just messing with you. They really are brain damaged. Like, sadly, it's a thing. So there's some of that, but also education about normalizing. Of course, you feel very guilty for X, Y, and Z, even if it doesn't. Other people would tell you, and maybe have told you 100 million times, don't feel bad about that. No parents are perfect, blah, 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 whatever. Like, of course, you're a parent, you're going to feel guilty. That's going to make you vulnerable to enabling. Of course, you're going to feel angry. That's okay to feel mad at your child, even though they're sick and, suffering, and you also love them. They're not mutually exclusive. You can honor that too. Educating them about not just what's going on with their kid, but how predictable and normal and totally understandable it is that they're having their own experience directly related to parenting a child who's going through what their child's been going through. So a lot of that, and also educating them about what they can do that maybe, unfortunately, probably, I'm going to say, not a lot of people, if anybody, has directly told them and taught them in a psychoeducational way. Like, here's this worksheet. This is what a relapse response plan looks like. If your child relapses, which unfortunately there's a likelihood, there's something you can do. You can be prepared. Fill this out, blah, blah, blah.
If it's not a relapse, it's not like a lot of times parents feel like, okay, or loved ones, like when my loved one goes and gets help and makes the change or goes to treatment, then everything's going to be okay. And that's not the way. It's not linear. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be things that happen, and whether it's behavioral or there's whatever goes on, it's not going to be this smooth process, and everything's not all good now. And there's things that you've created such a program, right? And even just as parents in general, to learn to know what we're doing. Like, I don't know, nobody taught me how to parent. I have an adult child. Like, I'm learning, I'm navigating this. You used to, I didn't want to mess up my kids. Now it's like, okay, I don't want to mess them up. We're all going to mess up, right? But I don't want to mess them up like too bad.
Well, and that's the thing, is that life is life. Obviously, no kid, no person is going to be perfect. We don't want that anyway. Everyone's going to have flaws and issues and so forth. But also, there are things that, when it comes to addiction, but this is in general, like there are things that you can control as parents, right? That by and large will make it less likely for them to suffer unnecessarily. Like, some of it's common sense, but some of it, especially when it comes to addiction, is not. Like, common sense, if you take your kid to school every day, they're probably going to be more, successful in life than if you make them get there on their own, or you don't make them go at all. Okay, yeah. But like when it comes to recovery, you wouldn't know, as a parent, you wouldn't know if you buy your child a car, don't give it to them when they're 7 days sober, just because, like, your brain might think, oh, they have a job's going to be good. That's going to help them stay sober, self-esteem, purpose. Here's the car. They're not going to know without being, that's the deficit that I've seen so many times. And parents are like, wait, what? I thought I was doing the right thing.
Oh, I've parents and interventions want to lure with things like that. Like, oh, if you go to rehab, you your own place in a car, or I'll do this. And I'm like, oh, no. Like, let's like, hold on. Like that's not about where we want to have a boundary.
Yeah. But you get where they're coming from, right? If they don't know better, like that, I get how that would make sense.
But it doesn't, right? In this context, not too much too soon. And that's the thing, is like parents confuse the love of their child with, like, the fixing and the cleaning up and the financial things. And, we can teach the parents we work with and the families we work with that that's not in this realm. Mental health and substance use, that's not how we show up for them.
Exactly.
Like, the best way we show up is to take care of ourselves. How many parents that you work with, when you say, what do you do for self-care, they say nothing? What is that? Like, I can't even count how many parents over time I've worked with that had zero self-care for themselves. Never therapy, never like fitness, no walking, no meditating, praying, reading, like nothing. Do you hear that often?
I hear, what I hear most often is they'll give me a couple, like, I do exercise probably, and maybe like social life, maybe, like those are the two. But I very rarely hear therapy, like church, temple, meditation, like anything in the spiritual, like self-care realm. Rarely hear like taking time for themselves, like vacations and like just like breaks, where they can really detach and be present and re-energize. So if anything, I'll hear like, I do Pilates 3 times a week, or play racquetball or something with the guys, or something like that, or golf maybe. That's usually what the self-care starts and ends.
That's better than some of the ones I literally would have to like define it with some moms. Like, they look so consumed with being the caretaker of the family, and then their child that was struggling, that they literally didn't even like go for a walk by themselves or read or like anything. And trying to help someone that's that far consumed with this chaos. It's like little tiny things. Like, I remember mailing them because they were out of state, mailing them like a morning read, just to try to start that. Like, start off with reading and centering yourself with something, and that's what you do for the whole day for yourself to start. But that's better than we were yesterday.
Yep. That's one of the blessings of getting them into if they I'm always recommending Al-Anon, of course, and that's one of the blessings of Al-Anon, is that they emphasize self-care, I think, a decent amount, especially in the daily readings, like you're saying. And so sometimes that helps, the repetition of hearing that most mornings when they wake up and they start reading those daily readers, then it kind of like starts to sink in. But yeah, it's a great question, because it's crucial.
It is. And I'm more of a, like, I think there's so, like, I have it on our site, and if you have any other additional ones, I'll share with you. of like options for families for like different things, because like I know some families do identify with Al-Anon, some don't. Like Families Anonymous, I know is really open. There's some of them that are just that cater to different people, but they're all beneficial. And if you're going to them, you're obviously trying to like take care of yourself.
Yep.
Are you able to see this question?
I see two.
On the screen.
Yep.
Common misconceptions parents have
Mm-hmm.
their influence on their child's recovery journey. It's a great question, Usman. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a great question. There are quite a few. It is a great question. I think the first one the one that comes to mind first is that they don't have influence. Some parents have a misconception to the opposite extreme, but in other words, like I can, if I pay enough money, or I, hang over their shoulder long enough, or I this or that, then I'll be able to fix it. But for the most part, at least the parents that I've talked to feel the opposite, disempowered. Like either they've been told, or they felt defeated through so much trial and error, and feeling like they're, barely treading water, if that like they might as well, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference anyway. If I do this, they're still going to continue to do what they want to do anyway. So what's the point? I just need to wait until they're ready, which I think we touched on yesterday is one of my biggest pet peeves, is people who, misinform families that
rock bottom, and like we can choose rock bottom as being here. It doesn't have to be power. It doesn't have to be on the street. It doesn't have to get to that. Like that is like kind of like the old school like terminology and words used. Like I think that hurt a lot of people, better,
and honestly, it killed a lot of people. I would go that far. Like I'm a pretty straight shooter, as you know, and like it really, being so passionate about helping people, as we both are in this, it makes me mad, really, that so many families who they're ready to do, just tell me what to do, I want to help. And I was talking to a woman the other day who, her daughter is in treatment at a program on the west coast of the country, and the therapist, she's calling, what can I do? How can I, and get what's a continuing care plan? What boundaries do I need to set? And the therapist is telling her repeatedly, your daughter's an adult, go to Al-Anon and read Codependent No More, and let her have her journey, and basically stop calling.
Like there's no family program at this place?
Nope.
I mean, I think that's like when you identify now, like if you're someone watching this and you are looking for a program, a residential program for your loved one, I would say make sure there is a family program.
100%.
Should be like, and that there's like, quality clinicians, and that's one of the core things for me when I look for a program for people or recommend. They have to, and I have to go. I like to go to see them regularly. Touched on this thing. You said you don't have this a lot. I actually have this often, is the parents that think that they can fix it, right? The parents that are, and then they're uber successful in business and life and not help their child. And that is a very hard acceptance line to get to, that someone else has to step in, and that they feel like they're not capable or they're not competent. And it's not about that. When I've helped, I shared this yesterday with the family I talked to. When I've helped my own family, I had other people that I brought in do it, because I have love goggles and emotional goggles that I don't see things clearly. So when it's been my own family, I had Blake, my former business partner, intervene on a family member. I couldn't do it because I even though I do this every day for a living, when it's you love, we don't see it. And so it's not a sign of failure as a parent. Not a sign of failure of success if your child goes down a dark road, or your loved one does. It's nothing to do with you.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know how it's not fair for parents to put that expectation or pressure, or I guess expectation on themselves in the first place, being that we're talking about a medical disease, and I think that gets lost too much with parents, understandably. But at the end of the day, if you don't have training and an understanding in how addiction does its thing and why it's so deadly and so difficult to get and stay sober from, then why would you know? I'm sure you're a great parent. It's not a parenting issue, like I wouldn't know if my kid had diabetes, like how am I supposed to treat that? I could be the best CEO or artist or professional athlete or whatever at what I do, and a lot of other things too, but I don't know about that.
And there are risk factors, right? There are things like childhood trauma. There are things that do happen, generational, abuse, generational, and the genetics. So there are things that do play parts in it. But it's like, well, okay, how, like, I mean, it was important for me to figure out like why I went down the path I went down. And I do believe that the sexual abuse as a child and domestic violence in front of me and my sister getting abducted, I believe that set a huge imprint on me. But like, how do we all move forward from that, right? Like, it's like you can look at it and figure out why, but really it's the actionable pieces, which are the coaching, supposed to move in a forward motion to a solution. And then also when problems come up in the road, what do we do? Like a family, a piece of paper, and be like, here, go do this. That's a lot for some of them. So that's where the hand-holding process of the coaching for a period of time as you titrate back is really, really helpful.
And that's what I'd say. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So go ahead.
Are you sure? I accidentally cut you off.
No, you're good, because it was going to go to a whole other different thing, but go ahead.
Okay. I guess just to underscore what you're saying, and what I think I'm trying to say is that this is so difficult for families, so difficult. And I'm always telling families, take it easy does it. Like, be compassionate, because they're always like, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I said I was going to do this, and then I did that again, and I should have known better. And I'm like, please be kind to yourself. Compassion. This is so typical. This is so painful as it is. Please don't make it harder on yourself with these unfair judgments, because they're completely unfair. Like, you're obviously doing the best that you can with the information that you have. And that's why, like you're saying, the coaching has been so effective, because it's the stuff that they have to do, that they know they have to do differently, is almost impossible to do without tons of support. So I'm able to give that to them a lot more hands-on than if we were doing therapy and I see them for 50 minutes, maybe 90 minutes at most, or something like that, once a week.
Yeah.
It's not going to cut it. We can talk about things for sure, but when push comes to shove and you've got to, what's that?
The in-between time is like so, like, so when we started 5 years ago, we eventually got to the model where we'd like, if we're coaching and case managing, like the client, like the parents have to, be doing their own, or the family or the loved one, and to have it separate. I think that's really important too. Like, when you're working with the parents, like, why are you working with them separate? Like, I think that's important for people to know too.
Yeah. What I don't think I don't know, I think I got off track and I didn't fully even answer this question that you had earlier, which is what it comes back to. Like, part of my program is the educational part, but the biggest part, I think, that makes the biggest difference is the live coaching calls that we do a couple times a week. And that's where it would be really strange and not helpful for their kids to be on it, with us, because it's very focused on, this is what your kids need from you at this stage of their recovery. Some of the people who are the parents in my program, their adult children are in active addiction. Some are in treatment. Some are recently out of treatment. They're in sober living and they're back home. So the phases range. So we're talking about exactly what's going on in their world and in their kids' phase of recovery right then and there, and tangible, actionable, like, this is the outcome that we discussed that you wanted at the beginning of, your entry to the program. It's typically,
Sorry.
Does Stella want to come back? No.
Eating the wall.
Eating the wall.
Chewing wall. No. I chose to have them out, so I did this to myself. I know you love Stella and Brownie, but they're both being very fresh. Yes. Really quick, there's a question from Sarah. I don't know if you can see this. Is there a normal length of time? Is there a normal length of time you normally do coaching for families? Do you see a trend for families who work with you longer? Because we're always trying to, get people to start at like a minimum 90 days. Like, you see, and what do you I guess you could answer that question. Like, what's the normal length of time for your coaching? And do you see a trend with families that work with you longer?
Yeah, I'm all about the longer the better in kind of titration, you know? So the program I mean, if a parent has enrolled in my program, which is what I spend most of my time doing, is working with clients in my program. It's a 90-day program and it's very structured. So there is an option to extend one additional month. But at the 4 months, because of how structured it is, we pretty much wrap up what we intended to accomplish in that time frame. Then we make a plan as part of the end phase, kind of like if you had a client in treatment, right? Like you start making a continuing care plan. So knowing that my coaching program, it's going to create big results in a short amount of time. Definitely, you're going to feel and be in a very different position than you were, every week. A lot, big changes happen. But still, this is a chronic condition, and I don't know, I would have to be a genie, right, to like do it all in even 6 months or a year. So part of it is we make a blueprint for remaining resilient, and not regressing and losing the progress that they've made during the program. And in some cases, that means we keep meeting individually every other week for touch-ups, or I hand them off to somebody else who kind of takes the baton and continues working with them, but in a less intensive way. So it really depends, but there's always an individualized plan in place for how are we not going to lose what we gained, and how are we going to keep this positive momentum going, because we know that there's still long-term work to do.
Absolutely. I think it's great. I mean, and I mean, Sarah, I definitely think and I mean, there's certain, like, you have the program for yours, but I think that, like you're saying, like the family work, it doesn't just start and stop. It's kind of continual, right? It's like our healing journey. Like, I'm on a continual healing journey. There's no end destination. Like, it's going to have times where it's more turbulent and challenging. And there's going to be times when it's a little bit more smooth sailing, but care of yourself and engaging, and self-care is just like the core, I feel like, is so important. Communication. Like, how do you, so, I love working with, like, exes, helping them co-parent. Do you bump into that a lot? Do you, because actually we haven't talked about that. I don't know what you do with situations like that. Cause I am blessed with 2 great ex-husbands, 2 dads of my children that I care for and I think are amazing people. But that's not always the case.
If I'm working with a parent who is co-parenting with someone who's not on board, is that what you mean?
There's people that are exes that don't get along, or things like that. Like, in situations like that, I love to try to rectify. Like, what do you come across that often?
What I come across often is one parent or the other participating in the program, and the other parent not being willing to.
Yeah.
So that says a lot, because there are so many opportunities. The way that my program is set up for parents to participate, it's not like you're signing on to, wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and do a 2-hour workout for 90 days or something. It's nothing. No, it's intense, but the commitment's not that intense. So the fact that, they don't even want to show up to one coaching call or watch one video module, or, relay a question. They don't even have any questions, that they want their wife or husband to ask me during a coaching call on their behalf. That level of disinterest and detachment and, it's not my problem, is a big problem in itself. And usually a huge part, something that is definitely going to create barriers to their child getting better if they're not, addressed at some point. But usually I don't think quite what you're describing, at least not in front of me. Maybe I'll get it relayed to me.
I mean, because I've been referred people that were problematic, that, like, programs were struggling to have the parents even close to get on the same page, and their child is struggling with substance use disorder, mental health issues, and you can't even get them to be on a phone call together without each other. So, like, that's like, it's definitely interesting. The is great when you're doing virtually. It's like, all right, both of you, I'm muting you because
Yeah.
you can't even, like, and I want to unmute one at a time and teach you how to like communicate with one another, understand one another, because it's not about you as the parent. Right. It's about the love of your child. So that's a whole other tangent. We could do a separate one on that. But Usman has some great questions today. What are some of the success stories from your coaching program that have stood out to you? There's one like story that you want to highlight.
Yeah.
Coat here.
What did you say about your coat?
So I'm getting hot under my teddy bear coat here.
Oh, yeah. Well, we are in Florida, but it goes with your background though.
Yeah, it's comfy, cozy. It's like, yeah, Essen picked it out for me. So,
she has a great taste. I've never met her, but based on her social media, she has great taste.
Yes, you need to meet her. You guys would vibe.
Yeah. It's because it's as exotic. Your background's exotic. Yeah.
So a good success story that stands out to you, like your favorite one.
Oh, I have so many. It's not, I don't say that like it's about me. It's like so many parents have done such good work, and I think that's the probably the reason why I don't have like, okay, I'm going to mute you because you're being difficult and argumentative and not listening. That whole thing that you're describing. Certainly when I worked in treatment, I had that, a good amount, but the parents who sign up to work with me at this stage are basically always wanting to do work, and motivated, and yeah, they know that something's missing and they want to try to do whatever it is that they haven't done yet that might be the thing that turns the corner. So usually they're not arguing with me or each other, which is actually very refreshing. I kind of forgot about that whole world for a second, but yeah, I guess my favorite. I may later on be like,
no, you tell people to be gentle with themselves. The same thing. You're stepping into new arenas. It's not going to be, and no one knows if you're going to get something right or wrong. Right? It's only you and me here.
Yeah, I think probably what I'll say, and then when I think of something I wish I would have said, I'll be gentle with myself. I promise. Is a couple who I worked with for a little over a year, maybe a couple of years ago, who the very first time, I remember the first conversation I had with them like it was yesterday, and they had almost no hope. Really, their daughter was very mentally ill on top of a serious, polysubstance dependent, like low bottom, and had been to treatment. One of unfortunately the stories that we hear more often than people I think we do. A lot of times people are like, you're not going to believe this. This has got to be like the worst case you've ever heard of. And I'm like, unfortunately, I wish it was, but it was a rough one. And the parents were defeated, like had been doing this for, a decade and didn't want to be the bad guy at all. And that was, of course, a big part of why they were stuck where they were. Their daughter had been to a lot of really good programs, actually, and had never stayed sober for more than maybe a month or two out of treatment in a decade. And little by little, especially the mom who had so much fear, started standing up for what her daughter needed her to stand up for, and saying no and not taking all the phone calls, and little by little, but it was a lot because they were super enmeshed. So it was a lot of work. And this is probably why it's my favorite, or one of the stories that sticks out to me, because the resilience that it took of these parents to trust me and the process, and that these little changes, they're going to add up. You're not going to see it tomorrow, but I promise you it works. And they listened to me and they trusted me and they took these risks. Like, but what if we don't pay for this Uber and this happens? And I'm like, I can't promise you, this, but I promise you, if not, then this is what's gonna, and just stayed the course. And she just celebrated 3 years sober. And of course, they are, still can't even believe it, but it was all about their work. That's what was keeping her sick. And when they realized that they could do things that they thought they couldn't do, and then they kept doing them, and they saw her getting better, it was
gives you momentum when you're seeing, you know, first it's like blind faith, like to blind faith you, like, okay, and then they start seeing a little payoff, then it encourages you to want to do more work, you know. That's really beautiful. I'm sure the whole entire family system completely changed. Like they're not just changing their life, but I'm sure like internally they probably communicate. They probably have bonds in a different way. Now the parents aren't scared and aren't befriending the child. They're parenting and having a good relationship. You know, like that's beautiful. I actually had one of my favorite, not family one, but just a general success. One of my favorite success stories. There's two women. The same year, I had both of them court ordered to treatment, did both their interventions, and both of them tried to leave. And I introduced them, and they were from different states. And then they ended up becoming best friends. I knew they were both from good families. I knew that they're still best friends. And one of them just had a baby yesterday. And like knowing from where she came from, where I did the intervention, and seeing to where like her life is, both of their lives, it's just like you wouldn't believe it from day one, you know. That powerful, like, you know, if you channel this energy into something positive, like you could change watching that unfold between, you know, before your eyes is just so cool.
Yep. And the visual too, that now that you're saying that, I'm thinking about these parents, would send me a picture of their daughter when I first talked to them, just so I could kind of, you know, get a visual. And then this past year sent me their Christmas card, and she hadn't been on the Christmas card in years, up until I think 2 years ago was her debut. And then this past year, and it's like just her everything, the difference between I'm dying, almost dead, and thriving. And none of that would have been possible without them facing the tough decisions and walking through that fear that they were able to get through.
I mean, this might catch you off guard, but I'm good at that. What do you think are if you could give a couple, like the most important things you think for a family to do, like for their loved one that's struggling? Just like kind of, they could be generic overview. Like obviously every situation's different, every family's different, but there's some key components. What are some of those important things to do for parents? We'll go more specific. Parents that have a child that's struggling with substance use disorder, mental health, eating disorders, you know, anything in that realm. Like, what is the most important thing?
The first thing that comes to my mind is get good professionals on your side. And that's for you as parents, but also for their care. You know, every field is full of people who have varying levels of skills and also passion and commitment. And it's really, really difficult to help a person who's in very early recovery or who's in active addiction and does not want to get sober to move along the change spectrum. So it takes professionals who aren't just smart, like smart's good, it's important, but hard workers and dedicated to outcomes and not going to give up because this didn't work, or, you know, the client didn't like that. So make sure you have people in your corner who know what they're doing, who are helping you and them in, you know, the best quality, you know, that you can. So that would be one thing. And then also
great one. And if you get a professional on your first try, you know, if you know someone that's been through it, if you know someone that you've tried, like that's the best way to go. Cause I've seen too many people go like online and just go in rabbit holes. And like, when I find out I'm someone's first call, I'm like, oh, like really lucky you didn't get like.
So lucky. I tell people that all the time. Yeah. Because this woman I was talking to the other night whose daughter's in treatment and isn't allowed to be part of the treatment process. She's cash paying for this program that she found on Google, and I don't even know what this, like, never, you know, just it had good reviews, and she just gave them $30,000, and they won't even tell her how to set a boundary or what the continuing care plan is.
I mean, and that's So like there could be no release, but even if there's no release, the family should still be able to do their own work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's the case, but like I have families that struggle with like, oh, we can't, find out, well, if they are 18, they don't have to sign a release for you.
Right.
But family should have their own version of what they can do without a release.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I wish that was the case in this situation. It doesn't sound like it is, but yeah, that is a barrier sometimes too. And I guess that's a good segue to something else that I would say to parents, which is make sure that you are involved and you have a touch point of somebody who is on the ground in their world, whether they're getting sober half a mile from where you live or across the country. It's really important for you to be able to have open communication with ideally their therapist, their psychiatrist, their coach, their sober house, owner, manager, what have you, because you are going to inevitably come across decisions that you're not going to know what to do with. And if you don't have the insight from somebody who has a pulse on how your kid's doing at that time, then it's a shot in the dark, and the stakes are way too high to be shooting in the dark. So you got to be able to ask somebody, the therapist, like, they want to come home for Christmas. My gut says this, but I don't really know. So can you please help me with this? And a lot of adults, they don't want to sign releases and give that permission, but do whatever you can to get it anyway. I'm not ethical, I'm like to convince them, to talk them through that and get them on board so that they understand that it's vital for you to be able to give them the support that they deserve. They are fighting for their lives too, and you don't want to inadvertently undermine that because you don't have the information you need.
Yeah. So what about like the transition home? Like I know so like I've been hired by many programs like to work with like that during that transition home piece, right? Sometimes we'll have someone go with them and do like the companion piece, like, and help them like get things together. But sometimes it's going home to, your parents' home. I mean, a lot of times you're going home to you're going to a next step, right? A step down program, which is ideal. In my case, I was a young mother, so I had to I went right home to, taking care of myself and learning how to be a mom at the same time. Don't recommend it to anybody. It was awful. It was a lot. I was jealous of the people in halfway houses that got to like hang out and have fun. I had like real life responsibilities, but there's a lot of times where we've worked with families in the past that, their loved one will come home and like be doing all the right things, but sometimes like if they fall asleep on the couch, like they think that that's like a red flag. So like, what is something that families can keep in mind when a loved one comes home, to not like jump at the gun, to think that they're up to no good, or like where's the healthy balance between that? Because that's hard to build the trust. And if you see somebody sleeping, you think that they're passed out, but maybe they're just tired, So like, I'm sure you come across a bit of that.
Yeah.
And the hard part, the transitions are the hard part.
Yes, exactly. The transitions are the hard part. Yep. And coming home is definitely one of those. I by and large don't, because the population I'm working with now almost exclusively are parents, and by and large I'm not recommending that they have their kids come back to live with them anytime soon, because the population is, I'm talking to parents, their kids are in early, active addiction, or they're newly sober, so they're at most 18 months sober at that point. And if at all possible, in my experience, it's ideal not to go back to living with your parents if you're newly sober. So for the most part, parents listen to me. And so for the most part, I've not had to help parents navigate that specifically. But still, even if they're not home, say their child has moved out of halfway and now they're in their own apartment and they're going to visit their child, or their child's coming home for a visit, or they're on FaceTime or something.
Or don't answer the phone when they think they should, or go out.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Tracking their phones. Like, I'm just kind of going through.
Of course. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Without them having to move home, there are plenty of triggers, and it's hard to know what's true, right? Too, because some of the things that are triggering, it's kind of like the difference between, like, am I paranoid or am I, anxious? Like, if you have a real reason to be worried, then you're not being paranoid. Like, that's responsible to be concerned and maybe explore to an extent why they are passing out at or falling asleep at 7 p.m. That's not, a normal behavior for adults and not what your child normally does when they're not under the influence. So
last night, because I was so tired from all the podcasts.
you did. Well, also you're a little sick.
6 p.m. Oh my God. But there are going to be things that are going to be like if they're just getting back into the workforce, like those are things that can happen, right? Or could go somewhere where you're tracking their phone and it's not somewhere and like, so what is a healthy way to approach that rather than helicoptering, right? Like you want them to feel like you're building the trust, but obviously you're not going to trust overnight because it takes time to build. And so what's the healthy way, to do that?
Well, one of the things that I talk a lot about is pausing, because oftentimes due to the chaotic and traumatic nature of addiction, parents have an instinct to react like things are emergencies when they're not. Some things are, and that's why they have that instinct, because they've been through true emergencies a lot of the times with their kids. But but like, if, for example, they turn off their location, or they look really sleepy at the dinner table and it's the early evening, things like that, instead of those are not actual emergencies in that moment, right? So I talk a lot about pausing and
trigger that emergency part of that.
Yep.
They trigger that. So that's like you're saying the pause and like, yeah.
Yep. And in that pause, it's not just like pause, like freeze dance, like, okay, pause, okay, go. Like in that pause, then, what do you do with that time that you bought yourself? So checking your thinking, right? If you have an Alipal or, a friend or a family member who you trust their judgment and they've been in this journey with you, to where if you ask them, hey, like, this is what I'm seeing or I'm hearing or I'm thinking, can you check my thinking on this? Because our thinking, the thought distortions aren't isolated to the addict or alcoholic, right? So it's contagious. So yeah, that too. So, checking your thinking and putting it in perspective, and then talking with somebody else, or reflecting on, we do a lot of assertive communication skill building and role playing and practicing in the program. So, okay, you've gathered your thoughts, you've decided this is one of those things that you do need to address. You don't need to address it right this second, but you do need to address it, whether it's for yourself, for them, both of you. And this is how you're going to say it, directly, or ask it directly and respectfully, in a way that's going to be in line with one of the, we have a lot of goals that we're working on simultaneously. And for most parents, one of the goals they're working on is nurturing a positive connection with their child. So
that's the
how
best.
are we going to talk about this? Because like, if you ignore it, that's not loving either, like.
Yeah, that should be like the ultimate goal, is that number one, right? Like, and that's why people like hire me to coach their loved one, or hire someone on my team. Like, we can help manage that nitty gritty stuff and let you just build the relationship with your child, and then the is working with you. And so that's what it's about, that connection and that relationship. Well, my last question after this, I'm not going to bother you both. No, we love the questions, Usman. Thank you. Parents set healthy boundaries while still offering support to their adult children. And I think that, like, as you and I think, like, we know that this very well. I think this is a really big question for a lot of people. It's very confusing. Boundaries I think they're confused on what boundaries are,
Yeah. Boundaries, so there are many cases where, just because you're not the one who's going to provide them with something, and that's your boundary, I'm not going to drive you to your doctor's appointment or pay for this or that for you, doesn't mean that you are depriving them of that thing. You can provide alternative opportunities for them to get what it is that they want or need, or ways for them to get it for themselves. So it could be, I'm not, after, I'm throwing out hypotheticals here because there's no specific scenario in this particular question, but I think this kind of captures the spirit of the question. Like, okay, I'm going to give you 2 weeks. If you don't have a job by then instead of giving you money for X, Y, and Z, I'm going to give you, half of that. Or I'm not going to give you that anymore, but I will give you, a bus pass to get to interviews, or a gift card to TJ Maxx so you can get an interview outfit, or a case manager who can help you with all the above and practice common interview questions and take you around and show you what places are hiring and empower you and give you the resources instead of giving you the money, and then you avoid taking the growth steps that are eventually going to, actually pretty quickly, going to build your self-esteem and the independence that is so important for sobriety and healthy adult functioning. So that's, I guess one way that it shows up is, saying this is my limit. That doesn't have to be the end of the sentence. This is my limit, and this is what I am still willing to do, or this is what, I'm willing to do instead, or here's a suggestion, or point you in this direction in the absence of me continuing to provide this thing that I'm no longer going to do. And the way that you say that too is very important. When you're in early sobriety, like it's processing is difficult. You're more emotionally sensitive, and you have to hear things, directly a lot of the times for it to penetrate, but also very kindly, and lovingly. And you don't have to set a boundary with harshness or criticism or any semblance of anger, disappointment, none of that. And that's where the pause is so valuable. You can collect yourself, ground yourself, come from a place of love and respect and support. And that will shine through in the way that you set the boundary, so that they know, both from what you're saying and your tone and your energy, and you're all the above, that you're genuinely doing this. This is not fun for you either. You're not doing this to harm them or because of pleasure. You're doing this to empower them because you believe in them and you know that this is what's right and that they can do it. They're capable.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, if you're on the other side, Usman, like if you're in a place, say you're a parent of an adult child that's struggling, like offering, to get them help and support and get help for yourself and support, but not like fund their, them harming themselves any longer, I think is something that families get confused by too. Like you will support and show up to like therapeutic or things that are to make them have healthy choices or support them in treatment, things like that. But you're not going to give them money to, sell them money when you don't know what they're doing, if they're drinking a ton or they're using drugs, and, it could harm them. So I think there's like ways, big ways that we can show up and have firm boundaries, like that we're not going to continue to like condone the behavior that's going on.
And it's really hard to come up with that when you're so emotionally entrenched. And that so many times parents are like, oh my gosh, you're a genius. I'm like, can't believe it. And I'm like, I'm really not, I promise. If you were in my shoes, it probably would have occurred to you too, but you're so enmeshed in it, understandably, that, you don't have the detachment to see that you have so many available responses to you because you've ruled them out over time and decided you can't say any of those things because it risks a conflict, or it could put them over the edge, or it might not be the right thing, or whatever the case is. But actually you can say a lot of things that you've taken off the table for yourself.
Love that. Okay. So we're coming to the point where I think you're prepared for this today. How do people find you, Jessica? What's your website? I'm going to type it in here.
Cool. It's jessicaponcoaching.com.
Okay.
Simple. Although your managing partner, Sarah Free. Yeah. Is that the right title?
Yeah. She's the managing partner.
Yeah. Managing partner, executive director, right-hand woman.
Managing partner, because she's
managing partner. Sorry. And my personal pet insurance coach and website guru advised me to start a second website called parentingthatpromotesrecovery.com, but that doesn't exist yet. It might. She's onto something. Facebook, the group is called Parenting That Promotes Recovery. So if you search that, you'll find the group. Love for anybody to join. I will be happy to admit you. There's tons of free content in there. That's where I get the most people like, what do you do? Like, stop, like you're posting so much value. And I'm like, good. People are, consuming it. It's helping them. So videos, downloadable PDFs. You're in it now, right? Yeah, I think you're in it. So
I have had a moment to look through it, but I'm in it. And that's the thing is like, one of my, there's different reasons and purposes why I continue to do stuff online. But one of the ones like, and why I like to have people like you on like today is there's so much garbage on the internet. Let's combat it with some quality stuff, like some real things that can help people, some proven results, things that are working, your credentials, your experience, like that's like what I'm about, like helping promote, get out there, like I even shared when I did Eric Ricker's podcast yesterday after ours, it was like at first when I came online, it was like to show everybody that, as the town F up that like I turned, that was my first, and then that didn't feel good anymore. Then it was help make stigma. And then, and then there was like a lot of that going on. So then now it's just like, I want to put out stuff that's like real and that people, and also like, Eric showed me a video. He's like, do you remember this video? And it was a video of me. Like it was so loud. I had a shopping cart. It was definitely not paying attention to like my audio or my video around. And it was talking about like being bullied online. And like, is that hard for you to talk about? And I was like, well, it doesn't like, feel like the greatest. It's not like, it's like, hey, I get hated on and get mean messages. Like it doesn't feel good, but like, I feel like it needs to be talked about. Like, and since I have talked about it, people have reached out to me and said, oh my God, me too. Thank you for sharing that. I know we're not supposed to pay attention to negative stuff, but like you sharing it made me feel not alone. So like, I just think it's important that you're out here. I'm proud of you for showing up and just doing it, and not like thinking about it and pondering over it or nitpicking your videos. Like I just make stuff and share it and don't look back.
And it's the best.
Yeah. Just do that. And it's you're helping a lot of people. And, as a therapist, and all that you've done for so long, what you can add and implement in the coaching world is just like so valuable. And any family that's working with you is very blessed.
Thank you. We have a free in the group tomorrow. I'm doing a free training on guilt. Understanding how guilt drives enabling, and then some concrete tips to replace guilt with grace. So it's called Unburdened. It's free training. I try to do them every week, at least every other week within the Facebook group. So if you join, you'll be able to join that live stream. And then I record them all, so you can watch it as a replay. If not, so
that's great.
Yeah.
The guilt is real as a parent, the mom guilt, that's the real thing. So yeah, definitely. If you have watched this and you have connected to anything, just be gentle with yourself. And if you're trying, you're doing more than most people. If you're showing up for yourself or for your loved one and you're doing great.
Yes.
So
amen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. This is Recovery Solutions, Next Level Recovery Associates, www.nextlevelra.com for all things mental health, substance use, eating disorders, and the concierge realm, virtual, in person. Reach out to us. We're always happy to support. And I'm going to close it out here on Instagram first. And then I'm going to do it. Hold on. You stay on though.
I'm on.
Smile for a picture real quick before we get off. Thank you everyone for being here. Okay. Bye.
I look so pale compared to you. Can you filter it so I look tan like you?
There's no way. I mean, the tan is, I'm sweaty. I was on a cruise, so of course I'm going to be super tan. I'm off. Hold on. Why is it not ending?